Hey everybody, welcome to another World of Warships replay. This one is another battleship game, so it's going to be a bit of a slow burn, but it's another look at the North Carolina, the Tier 8 US battleship. Started out the south spawn of North. Teams are not too bad. The enemy have an extra cruiser and an extra destroyer, but other than that, I can't complain too much. So, the North Carolina looks very much like a slightly squashed Iowa. The Iowa is longer at the bow and stern, but the turrets are largely the same. The layout is basically the same. And they can be difficult to tell apart from a distance. Really the key to it is the Iowa has a much larger amount of open deck on both the bow and stern, much like the Yamato does. First thing I take shots at is the enemy Colorado. The North Carolina's gun range is just over 21 kilometers, so it's not too bad. It's competitive with the Japanese ships. Most of them sit around 22 kilometers. And the 16 inches on the North Carolina are quite nice. The US 16-inch guns are really good. With the Colorado behind an island, I fire a couple shells over at the enemy cruisers to see if I can soften them up any, or at least force them into cover. I do pick up some hits there. Meanwhile, looks like most of our team's heading west. Typically a team will kind of barrel all down one side and leave the other totally open. Often the only thing really able to flex out and defend the open water is destroyers and cruisers, or are destroyers and cruisers rather. And obviously, in a straight-up fight against battleships or a large number of cruisers, they're not going to fare too well. So, it's always a good idea to be mindful of how many ships are actually going down each flank. It's kind of even more important than World of Tanks, because battleships just cannot get back in time to prevent a stealth cap. And destroyers and cruisers don't really have the hit points to survive an extended slugging match. So far it looks like one of our battleships is AFK. It's not too big of a worry right now, and with him sitting there in the cap he'll actually be able to spot enemies as they come in and also soak hits. But funnily enough, right as I mentioned that, he actually wakes up. The enemy also have an AFK, the Fuso. The Fuso's not really a threat to me, particularly since it's AFK, but I'm not going to turn down a chance for easy hits if I can get some hits. It is a frontal shot, so it is a bit difficult at this range. Pick up 3. The Izumo is running to the west. He'll be engaging most of our battleships there, or by most of I mean 2. This is Pensacola's trying to be clever. He's sitting behind an island almost perfectly still. Not going to work, buddy. He seems not to realise that, gravity is a thing and that shells arc instead of flying flat, so the island's not going to protect him at this range. And sure enough, I'm able to knock off half of his hit points before he can get out of the way. The enemy are pushing down the east. Their team's actually distributed quite decently, although they're a little light in the west considering the amount of stuff we've got going there. I actually decide, and this is really risky in a battleship, I don't recommend it, I decide to just go straight down the channel in the foreline. Now when you do go into a channel like this, you're really at the mercy of destroyers, and cruisers, but mostly destroyers, because they can just lay down a wall of torps, and because the channel is too narrow for you to really turn in, and because you do have, the rudder shift issue, being a battleship, you might not get a chance to get out of the way in time. In this case, the enemy destroyers already torped at the Sims and the Myoko and missed both of them, and so I had some time to get myself into position. The US battleships can handle these narrow channels a lot better than the Japanese can, simply by virtue of their tight turning radius. If you tried this in a Japanese battleship, you would basically not be able to evade at all. Cleveland gets my attention, which is a bad move on his part because it means I start sending shells his way. Fuso is still AFK. No point worrying about that just yet. The Izumo is switching back towards the east now. Obviously he decided he didn't want to engage 2 battleships and a cruiser all at once. And he's missing quite a few hit points. Decide to cut through the little cluster of islands here. Again, this is a really risky move, and I only got away with it because the enemy destroyers weren't paying attention. As the Izumo is covered by terrain, I re-engage the Cleveland, and if this hits him, it's probably not going to do him any favours. At this range, it's really going to hurt. It does make a turn after I fire, so I only get 1 hit in, but it still takes quite a few of his hit points. And it looks like the enemy are pushing pretty heavily down the 7 and 8 lines. Mostly with their cruisers. Now we do actually still have some ships back at our cap. We've also got more heading to it from the west side of the map, so I'm not too worried about the enemy stealth capping us. We've got plenty of people to defend it. My main concern is try and take out these battleships while they're sandwiched between myself and our other battleships in the west. And preferably before the enemy destroyers actually figure out how to play. Fuso's still not shooting back, so there's no point firing at it if it's not going to fire at me. Now, I see an Atlanta here, and given the choice between firing at the Atlanta and firing at the Izumo, the Atlanta is a much bigger threat because of the way HE is now just murderous. If he starts firing HE at me, he's going to have me on fire all the time, which I can't really afford. So I send shells his way, ignoring the Izumo for now. And sure enough, he is definitely firing HE. Now, Fubuki's in front of me, so I begin turning, just to try and throw his aim with his torpedoes. That looks good, and it is good. It goes most of the Atlanta's hit points. I let go with my rear turret and then swerve to avoid the Fubuki's torps. And it looks like I just got the Atlanta. Fubuki misses, so I don't have to worry about him for about another minute. However, the other enemy destroyer, or one of the other enemy destroyers, is fired out through the smoke cloud to my right, so I gotta watch for those as well. Get away with it, and I look for some shots here in the Fubuki. Unfortunately, I'm shooting directly to stern, so it is a difficult shot, and my shells just miss him. Had I hit that, probably would have killed him, and probably would have saved me a lot of pain later in the game. There's not much point focusing on him with my primary armament, especially when there's a smoke cloud, which is going to cause him to fade in and out of my vision. And so I continue to focus on the Izumo, who is making a desperate dash for the 8 line. Presumably he thinks he's going to run down and rescue his teammates, who are hemmed in on 3 sides by my own team and the edge of the map. This Izumo actually ended up surviving quite a long time. He's able to avoid getting Citadel hit, and also made quite good use of his repair crew. And this is a problem with AP sometimes. Before it used to be a lot more of a sure thing, now with AP, particularly at longer ranges, battleships can be a bit of an issue. Especially if they're trying to run away from you. And so they're just giving you straight shots down their bow stern. Jesus. Sorry if I can't speak. I've had a whole lot of sleep the last few days. And you can see there again the thing where the turret's desync in replays. I don't know why. Took one torpedo there from the Fubuki. To be quite honest, even as someone who does play destroyers a fair amount, I do not like the way torpedoes work in this. I don't care how much damage they do. Damage is fine, speed is fine, range is fine. That's not a problem. My only issue with torpedoes is that they are actually able to fuse on almost parallel hits to the side of a ship. You know, when realistically they would probably just bounce off and sink. I think it's a little bullshitty. You know, obviously if the torp hits you dead on the bow or stern, it should mess you up, but if it just grazes along the side of your torpedo bulges, it shouldn't detonate. But that's just my griping. I don't know if that's a planned feature at some point in the future, or if Wargaming are quite happy with things the way they are. I don't really read the forums as much as I probably should. In fact, I barely read them since Alpha finished. My teammates suggest getting on the cap to try and pressure the enemy destroyers into coming into the open. There's not much point. We still got nearly 9 minutes left on the clock, and we have control of the map and a healthy advantage in numbers. This Izumo is actually making it really, really difficult to kill him. Although I am consistently putting hits on him and am consistently damaging him, he's able to get away and repair it before I can finish him off, basically. My hits aren't too big either, because I'm only hitting with a couple shells at a time, and they're not hitting particularly important parts of his ship. Citadel hits at this range are really difficult if the ship's trying to actively evade you. Obviously if it's just puttering alongside on, it's easy. But more torps from the Fubuki. He's sitting just in front of me. He's chasing after the Izumo to support him. Close shave there. He's probably about 9 to 12 kilometers off my bow, so he's where he can see me, but I can't see him. It's a little bit annoying, but as long as I'm ready for his torps and constantly shift course between shots, I should be okay. Enemy Izumo is running around the East Island. Obviously he's trying to get away from me and shield himself with terrain. Unfortunately for him, my team have the last enemy cruiser and one of the destroyers bottled up in the southeast, and so once they deal with them, they'll probably be heading east around that island. As you can see, I'm trying to predict not only this guy's heading, but also his range. If you're firing at a ship that's moving towards you or away from you, you need to compensate up and down for range. Usually not by much, but you do need to do it. If you just shoot at where the ship currently is, your shots are going to fall long or short depending which direction the ship's moving in relation to you. More torps from the Fubuki. Looks like he's going to pick up a hit here, and sure enough, straight in my magazine. Thankfully, not in detonation. I was kind of throwing away hit points to him there, but oh well. Now in a minute something will come up in chat that I'd like to talk about. Again, just picking up the odd hit on the Izumo, but he's repairing the damage almost as quickly as I can put it out. You can see those two cruisers plus one trailing behind all heading east, though they're going to put some fire on him and he is not going to get away. There we go. Who is the idiot battleship not capping? Well, that would be me, and the reason I'm not capping is because we have a cruiser in cap. Actually, sorry, a battleship in cap, not a cruiser. A destroyer right next to cap, 5.5 minutes on the clock, and there are 2 enemy ships left, both of which we know the location of. He says 5 minutes is practically a draw. No, it's really not. Maybe if we were all on the opposite side of the map to the enemy cap, it would be, but we have one person in it and one person right next to it, plus me close enough to get in it if I need to. It's not even close to a draw. Pubbies really struggle with figuring out whether they've got time to do something or not. I often run into the same problem. The opposite problem, in fact. I'll be looking everywhere but the clock, and so I'll run out of time. You have these puppies that are so obsessed with the battle timer that they fail to notice what's actually happening on the map. And so you'll get told with 10 or 15 minutes left in a match, oh, we got to cap. Or, 10 minutes in while the tanks, oh, we got to cap fast. If we don't cap, we're going to lose. Well, actually, no. If you look at the map, we've got control of it. Enemy are down to a single Fubuki who's now spotted. We don't need to cap it.
Concentrate fire on the designated target.
Unfortunately, that salvo falls just short of him. It would have finished that guy off quite comfortably if it had hit. He does beach himself here, but he then gets cloaked because he's been firing smoke. So I fire off my rear turret. Looks like that's good. Sure enough, I pick up 2 hits out of that. But by the time I fire my forward guns, he's already reversed off of the rocks, and so those shells just go straight into the side of the island. Nevertheless, for a team that was supposedly practically at a draw, we've got this very comfortably won right here, and the Fubuki is done for. Pretty slow game, pretty cruisy, but another good demonstration of just what these US battleships are capable of.